This is the classic. Apple's 27-inch iMac set the standards for all-in-ones when it was introduced, but like all classics, it has aged. Time has gone by and some new competitors have come along. Does Apple's iMac still set the standard, or have others dethroned it? Now, as you might notice, this looks like an iMac, as it always has. The basic design hasn't changed for years. Even after the 5K update, it still pretty much looked like the same system. Now, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? And this is still a very, very attractive all-in-one. The use of aluminum throughout the entire body of the system gives it a very solid feel that you don't see replicated with competitors very often. That applies also to the stand, which is very hefty and keeps the system in place. With that said, the design does show its age in some respects. Mainly, you might think it looks a little chunky. Some of the competitors offer thin bezels on their systems, and that means that while they have basically the same screen size, they are actually much smaller overall. Now, one functional thing to keep in mind with this design is that the base iMac comes with a stand that only adjusts for tilt, up and down. It doesn't do anything with height, it doesn't do anything with pivot or anything like that. And in fact, the base iMac isn't VESA compatible. If you want that, there is a version of the iMac that has that. You just have to make sure that you buy that particular version when you check out. Connectivity on the iMac is generally very good. You have 4 USB ports along with 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports that can also be used for USB Type-C. They provide a lot of bandwidth and they can be used for a variety of things, including external hard drives, in-displays, and various other peripherals. Now, one small downside you should be aware of is that the system can't be used as a display with anything other than another Mac. So if you're hoping to use it with a game console or something like that, as some people do want to do with all-in-ones, that's not an option on the 27-inch iMac. Now, the 5K display on the 27-inch iMac is technically old news at this point. It's been around for a few years, but despite that, it's still really at the cutting edge of display resolution. You don't see a lot of 5K displays around, and Mac OS does an excellent job of handling that high resolution. It has all of its assets in terms of the icons and the interface designed for that resolution, so it's very clear, unlike Windows where even with some of the more modern updates, it can still look a little fuzzy at times on certain parts of the interface. Now, aside from the sharpness, the color accuracy and color gamut is also great, so pictures look very vivid on the display, movies look amazing, games look awesome, everything just really pops. It doesn't really matter what you're doing, and that gives it a big edge over a lot of its competitors. You will find a lot of 4K displays available in this price point from Windows machines, but they just don't quite reach the same level of excellence as the iMac. Now, we reviewed the base iMac, which sells for $1,800, and that gets you a Core i5 7500 processor, 8 GB of RAM, a 1 TB Fusion drive, and AMD's Radeon 570 Pro graphics. Now, generally speaking, that's a really attractive package of hardware. The Core i5 processor performs very well. It's going to be right in line with the Windows alternatives. They all generally have that line of processor, or maybe a Core i7, which will be a little faster, but not hugely so. The Radeon graphics also do a really good job of powering the display. Now, in macOS, graphics performance is extremely smooth. You're not going to notice any slowdown when you're navigating between windows on this 5K display. In games, playing at 5K resolution is a little bit much to ask for this particular AMD chip. That's a very high resolution, and increasing the resolution also drastically increases the demand on the GPU. With that said, you can play a lot of games at 1080p. We tried Civilization 6, for example, and that played at 33 frames per second with detail set to medium and looked pretty nice. So you are covered as far as gaming goes. Now, the hard drive is where we come to a downside. This has a Fusion drive, and that means a mechanical spinning hard disk with a smaller solid-state cache. And that does provide good performance in everyday use. You'll generally find that applications load quickly, although every now and then one might take a few extra seconds than you would expect. However, if you want to transfer big files around, you can notice it getting a little slow. We tested a transfer of 3.4 gigabytes of data from this drive to an external solid-state drive. And when we did that, we found it took 1 minute and 16 seconds. Now, if you do that same thing on a 15-inch MacBook Pro with its solid-state drive, which is standard, that's going to take you about 30 seconds. That's a pretty big difference. That's a difference you're going to notice, and it can be a little bit of an issue. That said, you can upgrade the iMac to a solid-state drive if you desire. Now, of course, the iMac comes with the Magic Keyboard and the Magic Mouse. And that set of peripherals actually is not so hot. The keyboard is small, it doesn't have a numpad. It definitely feels cramped compared to the keyboard you might be used to using on other systems. Now, as for the Magic Mouse, well, we're not such a fan of it. Its ergonomic design could be better. It's a very flat mouse, so it doesn't really get cupped in your hand very well, and it can be kind of awkward to move it around the desk surface. We also don't really like the use of the touch gestures that much. They feel a bit strange. Some users might actually find it better to purchase Apple's optional touchpad and use that with the iMac. Despite its aging design, the Apple iMac remains a very handsome, very quick system that really benefits from the 5K display. This configuration, as said earlier, is $1,800, which is a lot of money, but a 5K display by itself, that can run you over $1,000 anyway. So when you wrap up everything together in the total package you're getting here, it's actually not such a bad value. We would recommend that you look at solid-state drive options if you're going to purchase the iMac. Consider how much they are several $100s more, but in any case, the Apple iMac remains a very competitive all-in-one and definitely is worth your time if you're shopping in this market.